Sure.
Yeah, you went down.
Oh, welcome to the EndurHunt podcast. I am your host, Andrew. Join me as I share my experiences as an emergent hunter, offer advice on how to overcome challenges, and pursue your passion for hunting. This is episode 10. We are going to be recounting my 2023 axis deer hunt. This one, on a previous podcast I mentioned, was a surprise hunt. I was not prepared for it. It wasn't on my list of hunts that I was expecting to go on this year. That being said, since I moved to Texas, I've wanted to hunt axis deer. I didn't know what they were before I moved here, but after I moved to the state of Texas, I got introduced to them and they have been on the bucket list since then. If you're listening to this and you have no idea what axis deer are, they are a species of deer that originally came from India. They were introduced into Texas in the 1930s. They're different than traditional deer you'll see in the States, like whitetail deer. Although they are deer just like whitetail and mule deer, they have a different gestation cycle. So whitetail, mule deer, elk, moose, basically every cervid that is native to North America, they have a very specific period where fawns are born, they're growing antlers, they mate, they drop antlers, and then the cycle repeats, basically. Axis deer have varying cycles, so throughout the year, you can see them hard-horned or velvet and growing. It seems like, from what I understand, their primary mating period, their rut, is in the summer, generally, but it's pretty long. It's like from June till August or something like that. I don't know too many specifics about what their actual rut cycle is. I just know that they have varying cycles throughout the year. And so you will look at the same herd and you may see hard-horned bucks. You might see velvet bucks or ones that are nubs that have dropped. It's very interesting. Like I said, they were introduced in the 1930s. Much like the rest of the exotic game in Texas, they were brought in. They quickly became a game species that you can hunt, and they are gorgeous deer. They are known for their beautiful coats. I mean, if you've never seen one before, I will put a picture of my axis deer up on the screen right now if you're watching this on YouTube or on Spotify video. If you're on the audio only platform, please go to my Instagram, EndurHunt. I'll also have the link in the description. And I've already posted pictures as of recording this, and the podcast comes out, I think, 2 weeks from now. So there will definitely be content on the Instagram page showing what they look like. But they are beautiful. I mean, their coats are amazing. They are also supposed to be one of the tastiest animals that you can hunt. The nice thing about Texas is that you can hunt them year-round because they are a non-native exotic species. So they are basically unregulated in terms of how many you can take. It's not like whitetail deer where there are specific seasons, bag limits, or anything like that. So axis deer were brought here from India. And as hot as the climate is in Texas, they've adapted very well. So before I get into my hunting story, I think it would be beneficial for me to break down how you might be able to hunt axis deer. So I'm going to talk about the way that I did it, but generally there are two different places that you can hunt axis deer. You can hunt axis deer in Texas, technically public land or private land. I have not researched axis deer on public land much. I do know that there are some draws for exotic species that you could potentially do, and those are public land hunts. I'm not aware of any walk-in access where you could hunt axis deer. Maybe there is some, but if there is, it's probably very pressured, and so most people do private land, whether they own land, have a friend that has land, or they go through an outfitter. The other place that you can hunt axis deer is Hawaii. Similarly, you can do public land there. You have to get a permit and you have to be able to find the land. I don't know what that process is like, but the more popular option, which is like Texas, is going through an outfitter, hunting private land. Whether you're going to Texas or whether you're doing it in Hawaii, it's not cheap to do the hunt, especially for bucks. I know when I last looked, you could find an axis meat hunt for $500 or $600 in Texas. I'm pretty sure that cost has gone up, and it's probably around $800 or $900. And that's just for a meat hunt for some does. Buck prices, the cheapest I've seen in Hawaii is like $4,000, and you're going to spend probably $4,500 and up in Texas, depending on the level and type of hunt you're doing. On the private land side, you can do high fence or low fence. Obviously, if you know someone that's willing to let you hunt on their property, then that's free. But I think for most people, you're going to end up paying for either of those hunts, either low fence or high fence, whichever you take. And you can find those on Facebook groups, or if you know someone who's using an outfitter. I will be plugging Wolf Ranch a little bit later when I talk more about my hunt and how I got there. That's the outfitter that I went with. But if you want to hunt axis deer, those are kind of your options. You're either going to go to Texas, most likely private land, low fence, high fence, your choice. Same thing for Hawaii. Hawaii sounds like a great idea, and you might even be able to find cheaper hunts. For me, the proximity, since I live close to the hill country, I can just drive and be a couple of hours away. The cost is going to be cheaper because not only are you spending the same amount of money on the tag, probably for the hunt, you have to actually get to Hawaii and pay for lodging and everything on top of that. I haven't seen any packages that include the lodging as well as the hunt. So enough of that. Let's get into my actual hunt. So when I moved to Texas, I had friends that I knew from the military that are Texas residents, and we started talking, and they introduced me to the wild world of exotics in Texas. I was quickly introduced to oryx, black buck, fallow, obviously axis deer, plenty of other species. And the beautiful thing is, well, I think it's beautiful. I think it's great because it gives you an opportunity to get some hunting reps in before the season starts for elk, mule deer, whitetail deer, black bear, whatever you're hunting in the fall. You can hunt these species year round, just like pigs in Texas. So most of the time, you're going to see those axis deer hunts at the end of spring into summer, maybe throughout the summer, depending on the outfit that you're going with. Once I got introduced to axis deer, I knew I needed to hunt them. They're just beautiful looking deer. They're extremely cool. And it's just a unique experience that you can have in Texas that's unlike hunting anything else. So I hunted with Wolf Ranch. If you're on the video, I'm wearing a hat that I got from Michael Morton. He is the owner of Hunt Wolf Ranch. It is private land. They are a hunting outfitter that has trophy whitetails, a lot of exotics. I think it's 650 acres of high fence. And one of the coolest things about it is all of the animals free roam. So they have the entire ranch to go around, and they use every square foot of it. We went all over the place, and everywhere you looked, you would bump into something. They have fallow deer, they have oryx, they have black buck, they have axis, and the most ridiculous big trophy whitetails that you could hope for. Even this time of year when they're still in velvet and growing out, they have some serious monsters there. This is the second time that I have hunted with Michael at Wolf Ranch. When my wife and I moved to Texas back in 2020, it was her second year of hunting. We struggled with public land, both in New Jersey and Texas, and I really wanted her to have an opportunity at a deer. We had no rifle hunting near us. And I went on a Facebook group. I don't even remember what it was called. And I was looking for an opportunity to do a management deer hunt. When you're looking on Texas classifieds or forums or Facebook groups, you will see management, meat, trophy. Management are basically, they are not trophy deer. On the high end, maybe 120-inch deer, which anyone hunting public land, like 120-inch deer in New Jersey, would be absolutely phenomenal. Texas is another beast, even on the low fence free range side of things, with the amount of deer that they have in the hill country. I mean, it's seriously there. It's deer city. It's insane. Both in the hill country and in South Texas, there's deer everywhere. I mean, it's insane. So a management deer, if you're lucky, is probably 120 inches. Personally, I didn't really care. I just knew that in the 2 seasons that I had been hunting with my wife, she was holding out for a buck. She wanted her first deer to be a buck. We talked about her potentially doing a doe. When I started hunting, I didn't care. She wanted to hold out for a buck. I was scouring this Facebook group, and I saw a post from this guy, Michael Morton, and he was advertising a management buck and doe hunt special. It was a great price. I don't remember what it is, but it was the stay, lodging, meals, hunts, quartering, skinning, all inclusive. And I had enough money that I could afford to do that. So I reached out. I set something up, and January 1st, 2021, we went out to his place. They had just started their outfit back in 2018. And Michael is super accommodating. Their ranch, even back then, was amazing, although they've done so many improvements now. It is a really welcoming outfit. This is the only outfit that I've done in Texas, so I can't compare it really to others. But you go into a beautiful house. I'm going to link his website. I'm going to put their Facebook page, their Instagram page. I'm going to link everything in the description so that you're able to find their information. You'll be able to look them up yourselves. But we connected. It was going to be a rifle hunt, low fence, free range deer. And this was their second year operating. So I think they started 2018. Technically, it probably was their third hunting season as a hunting outfit. And yeah, we went out there and we had an amazing time. My wife was able to shoot her first deer. It's this one. I've mentioned it and pointed to it a lot because the way the camera's set up, you can actually see it. She shot this deer. I think it's 115 inches. I'll be honest, I don't remember. I remember taping it afterwards once we got the mount back, but it doesn't really matter. It was an amazing hunt. She took that shot. I want to say it was about 120, 130 yards or so. And then the next day we went back out for a doe hunt. I was fortunately given the rifle, even though she was supposed to take both animals. They asked if I wanted to shoot it, and she said sure. She was happy because she got her buck. So I was lucky enough to go after the doe for the second part of the trip. Didn't get anything that morning, and I think it was the second evening of the hunt where I was able to take a doe at about 150 or 160 yards in this wheat field. They were so great. And the reason I'm saying this is because once you find an outfit and you like the people behind it, you want to go back to them and you want to recommend it. If anyone were to ever ask me, and I haven't been paid for this, I haven't been asked to share my opinion. In fact, I didn't even tell Michael I had a podcast until after I was already done with the hunt and back home. But I just genuinely like Michael. I like the people that he has there. They're extremely welcoming. The ranch is great. It's comfortable. If you're looking for a good experience with good food, good people, they have a variety of hunts that you can go after. And like I said, I'm going to link their website, all of the ways you can get in touch with them in the description of the podcast. That being said, when I knew I was going to go after access deer, there was no question of who I wanted to reach out to. Once I was able to afford the hunt, I reached out to Michael. I tried to see what availability he still had this year. I knew it was already in the middle of spring. I wasn't sure if they were still going to have availability or not. And fortunately for me, I was able to secure the last spot that they had available for this summer season. The next hunt that they have going, I want to say was fallow. I think we talked about he's doing a fallow hunt in October, something like that. And then they're going to be going straight into the whitetail season. So if you're listening to this and you want to hunt access deer and you want to go with Wolf Ranch, you can get in touch with them now and start getting ready for spring or summer of next year. Once the date was set and we were confirmed and I was good to go, at that point it was figuring out, okay, what do I need to do to actually get ready for this hunt? One of the things that I asked Michael about was if anyone had ever taken an access deer off their place with a bow. Now, I love bow hunting. The first animal I took was with a bow. I love bow hunting. If you listen to my 2022 elk hunt recap, you would know that I went on an archery elk hunt in Utah last year. Well, I may or may not have lost some arrows or damaged some arrows getting ready, so I needed to buy a new set of arrows and I needed to get my bow tuned and sighted in. Getting ready for this hunt, I was rusty. I hadn't touched my bow in several months since the end of honestly, I don't think I had touched my bow since probably October of last year. And I was giving myself about 2 months to get ready. Now, normally I think that would be okay, but I was having all sorts of tuning issues with my bow. I don't want to get into too much detail, but I was having issues with tuning my rest. I even considered going from my drop away back to a whisker biscuit, starting all over. I needed to get a new set of arrows, and basically I did not want to chance and put the effort and time and waiting to get my bow worked on and only give myself a month to get ready. So what I did was I built a new AR. I had started building an AR back in 2021. It was going to be 300 blackout, and this was my excuse to finish it. So I finished my upper, got everything put together. I took a bunch of different ammo. I went to shoot it out, and I found the load that worked. There was one that was shooting beautifully. I was getting 1/4 inch groups at 50 yards and solid MOA groups at 100 yards. It was shooting really well. I went and I shot through that box, and I went to go buy another box, and the store was sold out. So I went to another store, and they were sold out too. So I went back to the range, because the range had some of that ammo. Their prices are more expensive than everywhere else, so they were kind of my last resort. I picked up 2 boxes from them. They were different lot numbers. I think they were a bit older, and they shot like absolute garbage. I mean, at 50 yards, they were shooting a greater than a 1-inch group, which was about the same as the other loads that I had tried. Unfortunately for me, it seemed that this load that I was trying to work with on a constrained amount of time was just not going to happen. So I had to pull a Hail Mary and bring out my .308 rifle that I used to shoot my elk last year. This rifle is tried and true. I have spent a lot of money refining this rifle. I have taken this gun out to 1,000 yards multiple times, despite the fact that it is a .308. Yes, you can shoot 1,000 yards at .308. You just have to have a 20 MOA rail and be willing to adjust a lot, but it's possible. That gun shoots, it's beautiful. I love that gun. I'm going to throw a picture up of the zero confirmation that I did. So this is basically 2 weeks away from when I was supposed to go hunt. I had not touched this rifle since the end of my November hunt for my Arizona elk. I went out to the range, and the first 3 shots at 100 yards was basically in a dime. And I'm going to throw the picture up on, I'll throw it on Instagram. I actually put it on Instagram when I did it. But I'll throw it up again anyway. If you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify video, I'll throw it on there as well, and you'll be able to see the different groups. I'm pretty sure, if memory serves, the group at 100 was actually better than my 25-yard group, but I was also taking my time. Once I got to 25 yards, I mostly was just like, can I just hold this on? Am I going to be good? The gun is zeroed at 200 yards, and I've shot it to understand my hold. And essentially anything from 200 yards and in, I could hold dead on and it'll hit where I want it to hit within an inch, as long as I don't jerk the trigger or get too excited or anything. So I wasn't overly worried, but I also get really worried. I like to make sure my zero is confirmed. I was at the range every weekend for 2 months straight, basically confirming my zeros, making sure my groups were good. On one hand, I probably could have just used the 300 blackout, that first box I bought, but I like having more ammunition than I could possibly use, and maybe that's something I just need to work on, but it was something that it's just how I am. After that first day going out to the range with the 308, I was solid. I had plenty of ammo, and it's the same lot of ammo, so I had zero reservations or concerns going into this hunt. The only downside is that it's a 26-inch barrel. It's ridiculous, and it kind of got in the way during the hunt. But I did that confirmation 2 weeks before the hunt, and we're essentially ready to go at this point. The hunt is 3 days. You show up on a Friday evening, hunt all day Saturday, and you can hunt Sunday. It depends on how long it takes you to fill your tag, essentially, even though there is no actual tag because this is an exotic in the state of Texas. So we show up. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention that's kind of an important detail for me is my wife came along with me. It's very special for me to be able to share these experiences with her. I love having a hunting partner. Going hunting by myself is not nearly as rewarding as being able to share the experience with someone else, especially my wife. We basically started hunting together, but she hunts with me in Texas every year, and I love making her part of the process. I love her being there. It makes it so much more special, especially because I was going back to Wolf Ranch, going to be with Michael again. It made it that much more special to have her with me. So we show up, Michael's there ready to greet us at the ranch, and it is hot. I don't know if you're in Texas listening to this, but as I'm recording this, I'm pretty sure it's 103 degrees outside. And fortunately, it wasn't that hot when we were there, but it was in the upper 90s. It was hot enough that if you were in a blind, you were probably going to be cooked medium rare, just being honest. So we show up, and the first order of business is to drop our stuff, catch up really quick, talk to Michael, see how things are going. Then go and confirm zero, make sure the rifle's still good, that it didn't get bumped in on the drive-in or anything like that. Make any changes that we need to. This is actually where my first concerns came from. I'm not used to having a sled to shoot out of, and I've never shot off of a standing tripod. One of the awesome things about Wolf Ranch is, like I mentioned, they're 650 acres in the heart of the hill country. They have a lot of terrain. I mean, they have big hills where you could stand on top and glass the entire property. I mean, it is not flat Texas like some people might think of when they think of Texas. They've got grass, dips in the terrain. They have everything you could want. I mean, there's so much room for any animal to run and hide. It's got every type of terrain feature that you can hope for. Trees, grass, hills, with 360 degrees of coverage so they can move and stay out of the sun if they need. The thing I wasn't ready for was the really tall grass. There is a 0% chance that you were taking a shot in the prone. You probably couldn't even take a shot kneeling. You pretty much need to shoot standing up or using something else as a rest that you can do a modified kneeling position or something. You need to get off the ground though. There's no way you were going to do this on the ground. Shooting off the sled was super awkward. I've never done that before. My groups are fine, for the record. I'm just going to say that. There were no issues with my groups. But shooting off of the tripod, I took quite a few dry fires and shot a couple rounds because I wanted to practice. In the heat of the moment, I did not want that to be the thing that was going to make the difference between me taking a good shot and a bad shot. I'm a firm believer in dry firing, especially if you're hunting in a different way, because you need to practice and see how you react to different things. I wanted to see how my body was going to react on the tripod with the gun before I had a round in and I was sighting in on an animal. Again, I did not want the thing that came between me having a good shot and wounding an animal to be a tripod. Now, this was something I wasn't prepared for, and I've said it in the past, and I'll say it again. You should practice the way you're planning on hunting. In the Marines, we used to say train like you fight, which is so much shorter, but we're not fighting here. I don't own a tripod to shoot like that. I don't have anything that I could use to practice that, although I really want to now because it came in handy. All of that being said, I was still shooting solid groups well within the kill range that I would want. We shot at 100 yards just to confirm zero was good. If I needed to dial, which I shouldn't, but if I did, I know that my zero and all of my adjustments were good for that specific load. And once we got confirmed, we went back to the ranch and we went out to go on our hunt. It was too hot to go in the blind, so we started off by getting in the side-by-side, driving around, and basically trying to creep for a little bit, glass, see if we spot anything hiding in the trees, and then we would get out and see if we could walk in on it. We went on quite a few stalks actually that day, but there are two notable circumstances that came out of that first day that I really wanted to highlight. The first was the long stalk that we went on. So there was this one group of axis deer that we saw moving along the fence line. There was this big group of trees that Michael thought they were going to hang out in. So there's a low fence because it is a cattle ranch. So there is a cattle pasture that has a low fence, and that is butted right up to all of these thick trees and shrubbery and brush that is on the high fence side. All of it's connected, but the axis deer on one side, it's a big open field, and on the other side, it's a bunch of trees. Well, we watched them go and disappear into these trees, could not see them on the other side. So we knew they had to be hanging out in there. And man, do they blend in. And also doing a stalk where you're walking in, even if it's only half a mile, in that heat, wears you down really fast. So my wife, Michael, and I, we get out of the side-by-side. He parks it behind some brush. We check the wind. The wind is in our favor. It's not going to blow in the direction of the deer, and we decide to walk in. There is a nice little break in the terrain. I don't know if it sometimes is a creek, but it's basically just a little like a gully almost. And we drop down, we walk up it, and we creep over the other side and start glassing to where these deer are supposed to be. We are probably 75 or 80 yards from them, and you can just see all of them hanging out in these trees. It's so thick, there's no way you're getting a shot. And we wait. And it felt like 45 minutes of sitting in the sun without moving because we had no cover that we could reliably use. It was probably 10 minutes. But then one of the deer spots us, gets up, and starts walking away. And at that point, it's like, all right, they look like they're going to hop over the fence. They're going to go on the other side. So let's move over to another spot in anticipation of them getting there, and let's go down. As soon as we moved to our left to go towards that field, they bolted. I mean, mostly all of them hopped the fence and followed the cattle pasture all the way around to the other side of the ranch. But there was one, as we were walking to this one spot that was directly to our left, probably within 30 yards, this axis buck just bolted past us. I mean, he followed the low fence line. So the high fence that we were staring at is perpendicular to the low fence for the cattle pasture. Every axis buck and doe hopped the fence, ran out along the high fence, except one. The one axis buck followed the low fence, ran perpendicular. I mean, he was moving. He was way too fast. He was not going to stop for sure. But it was really cool because he was like 30 yards away from us, and you could just see every detail of him. They have the weirdest run with their head going back because their antlers go backwards, kind of like elk. Super cool. We're now in a nice shady spot, and we're basically watching a group of axis deer that are now 450 yards away from us, where they were just 75 or 80 yards. And we accept that they are not stopping anytime soon. So we go back over to the side-by-side. We basically repeat this throughout the rest of the day. We move and find a new spot, stop, glass, try and locate some bucks. If we see anything, we get out and we start hiking in and try to make a move. So there was one more notable fun event that happened this day. In one of the areas we went, it just looked bucky, deery, whatever you want to call it. We pulled up to this spot, and Michael is like, I usually see deer there. And I'm looking at it like, if I were a deer, I would hang out here. There's a creek. There's dense trees. It's kind of isolated away from everything else. It seems pretty damn perfect. And it was here that I got to experience both sides of skittish axis deer. They are extremely skittish. They will either see you from 200 yards away and run, or they hide until you are on top of them and you're basically able to throw a rock at them. And then they run. There is no in between. It's one or the other. That's pretty much my experience. Well, this second stalk that we did, we move in, and I don't remember if it was Michael or my wife. One of them said, I see axis antlers. And we all take out our binos and we're looking, and we find them. And they're probably 50 yards or so from us. It's two bucks, and they are in this little gully, hiding in some tall grass. You can't see anything except the tips of their antlers. We walk in, and at this point, all of the other animals have ran out. We are so fixated on these two that we didn't even notice that there were other bucks and other axis deer, and everything else bolts out. So we get within probably 30 yards of these two, and you can see their heads moving, but nothing. They do not move. So we look, and this is a high fence hunt. It is a trophy axis hunt. There are some magnificent bucks on this property. At first look, it was hard to gauge whether or not they were the type of buck that I was looking for. This may realistically be the only time I get to hunt axis deer in my life. I don't know. But I'm hunting as if I may not get a chance to do it again. So we decide, let's back out. Let's get back in the side-by-side and find another spot, see if we can locate more. Well, the rest of the day, we're not able to turn up anything. And we're like, you know what? It's almost sunset. Let's head back over there and see if those two bucks are still there. Sure enough, they are still there in the exact same spot We drive on top of them. I swear we must be 15 yards at this point. We can't get closer because we're about to drive into the damn gully that they're hiding in. And they won't move. The side-by-side is running. It is on. I'm like, I need to see this buck. I want to see if he's actually a decent buck. At this point, I'm just like, you know what? Screw it. I don't care if he runs. I just want to see what he looks like. I open the door to the side-by-side and I slam it shut. And that is finally the thing that triggers this buck to run. And that pretty much covers what axis deer are like. I mean, they either run right away or they hide and they stay still. And there's another stalk that happens on day 2 that also proved this point. He finally runs and he's a good buck. I actually probably would have shot him, but there was no way it was going to happen. When he started to run, he was gone. It would not have been ethical for me to try and shoot him as fast as he was moving. And although I've tried to stop them on the hoof, it doesn't really happen. They don't seem to stop when you do a grunt call like a bat or whatever. So that basically ended day 1. So starting off day 2, we get up nice and early before sunrise. We want to be in a blind before the sun comes up in an area where he sees a lot of action on his trail camera. So we get up and we get to the blind and we're hanging out. As the sun rises, there are just whitetail galore and some really nice white fallows. No axis deer though. We're probably at sunrise. And naturally, you know, it's a nice big box blind. You can technically shoot out of a bunch of different windows. And I look over my left shoulder behind me by the door to get in. And sure enough, I look and I see an axis buck all by himself coming in. And I try to turn around and he looks at us, sees us in the blind and bolts. I ranged it after the fact and he was about 150 yards. And by the time he got as far away as he could before he disappeared, he was about 250 yards. It was a really poor angle. I would not have been able to get in a great shooting position, especially not as fast as I needed to. But it was really exciting to actually see an axis deer. And I won't lie, it was super cool to see all the trophy whitetails. I mean, these are going to be 200-inch plus deer. I mean, absolute trophy, phenomenal whitetails. And it was just really cool to see. I mean, they are awesome animals. I will never be able to hunt one of those, I am sure. So it was actually kind of cool to watch them, even though I wasn't hunting them. Plus, fallow deer are super awesome to look at. They're still growing out just like whitetails are. We moved on from there. We resumed our plan from the evening of the first day. So we got back in the side by side and started cruising around. And we would do is hit spot, stop, glass, see if we see anything. If we do, try and make a play. We get to the same spot actually where we put on the long hot stock from day 1, where we stood in the sun for what felt like 45 minutes. And again, we see deer in this spot. Now, we didn't watch them come in, but we glassed the same patch of trees. And we could see deer and we see whitetail does. The whitetail don't seem to separate themselves too much from the axis deer. We watched and we were trying to see if there were any axis deer. And we couldn't see anything. But we're like, you know, they've been hanging out a lot. The ones that we had already seen this morning were actually together in the different areas away from where the blind was. So we decide to try and get a little bit closer. And we move in and, of course, the whitetails bust out. All of the whitetails bust out, but no axis deer. And from the day before, I was very interested in seeing the axis deer because I noted that they were either super skittish and ran as soon as they saw you, or they hid until you were on top of them. Now, instead of hiking in, we got in the side-by-side because the whitetails busted. We're like, there's like a 30% chance maybe that there's axis deer in here. So we get in the side-by-side and we drive up. And once we get within 20 yards of the tree line, sure enough, 2 axis deer or 2 axis bucks bolt out and run up the way we had just came. Now, one detail that I've left out is that my wife has amazing eyes for spotting game. It's truly impressive. I think she actually spotted more animals than Michael and I did. Kind of hurt my ego and pride a little bit. She comes and we're driving back, and keep in mind, there's a lot of terrain, so there's dips in like micro terrain where they can hide and tall grass. So we're driving back in the direction that these 2 bucks came. Now, we had already seen axis bucks in the direction that we're going, but they spooked. We actually tried to make a move on 2 axis deer earlier in the morning, and they vanished like ghosts. So we were driving in the side-by-side, spotted two of them, turned, got out, and watched one run. And there was one that was clearly bigger than the other one. We watched one run and then followed that one and tried to see if we could get next to it, or at least get to where it was going. And we noticed that the second one disappeared. So we turn around and look, and we never see it run away. We just have no idea. We ended up turning around because we realized the one we were looking at and trying to get in front of was not the one that we wanted. So we turned around, went back, and tried to find this one. Now both axis deer are gone. We have no idea where either of them are, and we didn't actually see them leave our line of sight. Reflecting back on it now, I think they just laid down in the grass, or they hid in the microterrain because there was so much little areas for them to hide. So anyway, we're now at the base of this hill, and those two axis bucks run up the hill where we just were, where we saw and tried to make a move on those two ones from earlier. We go up and we're driving back, going a different direction. We weren't even trying to see these two, try and relocate the two bucks that we saw. And out of the corner of her eye, my wife is like, there's the axis bucks from earlier. We stop driving, turn, and see both of them pretty much exactly where we left them before. So at this point, we are both excited. And I'm thinking, like, can I shoot out of this side-by-side? Because I'm going to be honest, I don't really have a whole lot of opportunities, and these things run really fast. So I take my gun, and this is where the 26-inch barrel becomes a pain in the butt. I set it up on the hood. So we have the front windshield up the entire time. And I set it on the hood, and I'm like, can I do this? I try and get in position. I'm like, it's awkward, but I've done worse. I could definitely do this. So he's driving now, and I'm basically just trying to hold this rifle in place so that it doesn't fall over. And we see those two bucks. You could only see their antlers at first, and then we get to a different part where they're running. Fortunately for us, they're on the far side where the property comes in, and the trail leads right up. So it basically, the trail converged with the path that they were following. So we go on this driving trail, we turn, and he turns perfectly so that the side-by-side is staring at them. At this point, they're running full stop. And then both of them stop, and they look at us for a second. They're staring at us. They turn around, and they start running the other direction. They are very good at going the opposite of where you want them to go. At this point, I'm like, oh, man, they're going to get away again. And I'm like, you know what? Let me just get on the rifle just in case they stop. The bigger buck is in the back. I have my rifle. I'm using the same rifle and the same scope as I did in Arizona. Back in Arizona, I had it at 5x magnification because I was worried about having to take a follow-up shot. I wasn't as worried about having to take a follow-up shot here, but I wanted to be prepared. So I got the rifle at 5x magnification, as low as it goes. I'm planning on holding right at the crease of the shoulder, the same way you do with the whitetail. And I'm like, all right, he's running away from me. My wife is behind us, so I'm sitting in the front of the side-by-side with Michael on my left. She's in the back, kind of in the middle, hanging out. And she is trying to keep an eye on everything and see where it's going. Well, I'm getting on the rifle, and there is maybe a split second where the buck stops running, turns broadside. He's quartering away a tiny bit. And within that 1 second time window, fortunately, I was already on the gun behind the scope, kind of on him. I moved it over and pulled the trigger, and it just happened so fast. I mean, the entire situation, from him stopping the side-by-side to me getting behind the gun and pulling the trigger, was probably less than 3 seconds. It was something we had never practiced before. It was not something I was really planning on doing or prepared to do, but fortunately, I have enough time behind the trigger that I was able to just get set up and press the trigger and be good to go. So he goes, and just like with the elk, I got excited and I was unable to relocate him right away in my optics. Fortunately, my wife recorded a video of it, and Michael was watching it in the binos. So I pull the trigger, and I lose it. I'm trying to relocate, and I don't see where he is. I probably wouldn't have been able to get a good follow-up shot anyway. And fortunately, he runs 20 yards and just falls over. I'm going to throw the video in on top of this audio. So there's going to be a break from me and you'll be able to just hear the video. It's not very long. It's only a few seconds. You can hear kind of how panicky I am because I was worried whether or not I was going to take a good shot. The funny thing is, apparently Michael didn't know I was getting ready to take a shot, so he did not put his ears on. You'll hear in the video that he was happy that I took the shot because it was probably the only opportunity I was going to get. But anyway, I'm going to insert that right now.
You're good. You're good.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it went down.
Oh,
I didn't know you were pulling the trigger. Good shot.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I don't care. I was like, all right. He turned. You had to do it.
Yep. That's awesome.
Oh, and yeah, I mean, that was kind of it. He ran 20 yards, fell over. We drove right up to him, and he died in an awesome place with a bunch of wildflowers around him. Honestly, it was a pretty picture-perfect place for him to die. I was super pumped to be able to go after this deer. I'm so thankful for Michael, having been able to connect with him 2 years ago and being able to put together this hunt and let me fulfill my dream of being able to hunt an axis deer, especially one as beautiful as the one I got. Once we went and picked up the deer, we took a bunch of photos. The next thing for us to do was to load it into the side-by-side and then go to the skinning shack. He's got a great walk-in cooler, walk-in freezer with hoists and everything to make a quick work out of your skinning, quartering. We preserved the entirety of the hide, so the whole animal got skinned. I'm going to be doing a pedestal mount because I think they're just gorgeous, and the remaining hide is going to get turned into like a throw rug kind of thing because I think they're just that beautiful. You got to save the whole thing if you do an axis hunt. And then we quartered it out for me to process back at home. I did all the processing myself. Usually I go to a butcher, and I have a local butcher here that I go to for ground and sausage and stuff, and I just decided I'm just gonna do it myself. I can't thank Michael enough. You know, this is the second time we've hunted with them. Both times have been absolutely amazing. If you're in Central Texas, or if you want to travel to the hill country and have a truly world-class hunting experience with an amazing lodge, amazing food, amazing people, amazing property and hunting opportunity, can't recommend Wolf Ranch enough. I mean, they can do it all. You can sit over a feeder in a blind if you want. You can spot and stalk on foot. They even have a blind with a wheelchair ramp so that if you are handicapped or disabled, they can accommodate everything. And they're great people. I mean, I cannot recommend them enough. I had an absolutely amazing hunt. It was exactly what I was hoping for and more. The buck is beautiful. I've got his meat in the freezer, and I can't wait to be able to see whether or not axis deer are as good as everybody says they are. Supposedly, they're the best tasting wild game you can get. I will let everybody know. And again, I can't thank them enough. It was such an amazing experience. I truly hope I get to do it again. I love it. Next time, I really want to do it with a bow. I love bow hunting. I have to try and get my bow in order and be able to get out there and after them with a bow. In closing, I hope you enjoyed that story. This is probably a bit long of a podcast, and I do think there was a little bit of rambling in there. I had an outline and I was ready to go in order, and then things kept coming to me as I was talking. So if it was a little bit all over the place, I'm sorry. It was just an amazing hunt, and I'm looking forward to the next one. If you're interested in hunting with Michael or Wolf Ranch, again, all of their information is going to be in the show notes, the description on the YouTube video. I'll make sure I tag them in at least a couple posts on Instagram. Can't recommend them enough. Thank you for listening. You know, I appreciate all of those that listen to the podcast. I know this is only episode 10. I'm hoping to be able to do many, many more, continue to get better at this, refining it over time. If you like it, please drop me a comment, shoot me a message on either YouTube or Instagram. I'd be happy to get your feedback, hear what you think of the show. You can also do ratings and reviews. That is something you can do on both Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you like the show, you could also share it. One thing that's going to be coming soon is I'm going to be starting a newsletter. I think it'll be a monthly newsletter. I haven't really figured that out just yet, but that'll be coming soon, and I'll be making sure to share that as well. Again, thank you for listening to this podcast, and I'll see you guys next time.